Hello everyone, Tmmgamer here, and today I have the pleasure of bringing you another one of my football talk videos, the series where I sit down and talk about the recent happenings in the world of football, both domestically and internationally. And as most of you guys know, today is transfer deadline day, but what I'm going to be doing is doing a video on the transfer window separately, because obviously there's so much that goes on the last day of a summer transfer window. There'll be so many moves, so I may refer to a couple of them, but I don't want to do a video on the transfer window when there's still quite a bit of time to the window to go, and you never know what's going to happen. There's always some ludicrous surprises that happen. There's some silly money that gets sprayed around on the final day. We'll have to see what happens, and I'll do a video about that later in the week. But today, what I wanted to talk about, firstly, is Aston Villa, and secondly is Manchester United, and talk a little bit about both of those teams. Now, I'm going to start with Aston Villa, and the reason why I wanted to talk about there is obviously because I'm an Aston Villa fan, and if you've been following me or the channel for any length of time, you should have twigged that by now. But I just wanted to talk about how well Aston Villa have started playing this season so far. I had the actual pleasure to go and see them play yesterday against Hull, and the first 45 minutes of that game was some of the best I've seen Villa play in so many years. It really was absolutely fantastic, because whenever I look at the fixture list and I see a team like Hull coming to Aston Villa, Hull is a team that on paper we should have a chance of beating, but it never seems to work out that way. We always seem to go and beat Manchester City and beat Arsenal away 3-1 and then get absolutely hammered at home to Stoke, which is exactly what happened last season. But for the first 45 minutes of that game yesterday, the passing was fantastic, the movement was brilliant, we looked incredibly solid at the back, we got everybody involved in the game, spraying the passes, moving the ball around nicely, we created a host of chances, we completely controlled the game, and we scored a couple of fantastic goals. And by half time I was actually surprised, and I actually said to my friend who I was going to see the game with, perhaps we'd walked into the wrong stadium. We were in fact watching Burnley or something. I don't know. But it was absolutely incredible. And one of the reasons why I think we are playing so well is Fabian Delph. And Fabian Delph has obviously been named in the England squad very, very recently. And I have to say, I think it's one of the most deserved call-ups in a long, long time, because he has been Aston Villa's best player for so long now, and there's been all of this talk about Ron Vlaar since the World Cup and how Ron Vlaar is fantastic, and I agree. You know, Ron Vlaar is absolutely brilliant. He's a great defender. I can actually remember one of my Dutch fans before the World Cup posting a comment on one of my videos saying that he hadn't seen Ron Vlaar play very much. Was he going to do well in the World Cup for the Dutch? And I replied saying, oh, he's one of Villa's best players, very, very solid. You know, he's not going to win the World Cup on his own, but he'll do a good job, and that's exactly how it turned out. But Aston Villa have done so well, or done as well as they have, because of Fabian Delph. He is just one of those players that is absolutely ideal for a lower mid-table team, because he's a guy who will run, he will put tackles in, and that's exactly what you need, because there's going to be games where you have none of the ball and you want somebody to put a shift in and win the ball back for you. He can certainly do that. But why I think Fabian Delph is a class above just the standard lower league or lower mid-table bruiser is that he's so good on the ball. He's technically gifted, he can pass. He doesn't score as many goals as a lot of other midfielders, but he has popped up with a few crucial goals. The one goal in the 1-0 win at Chelsea last season, which pretty much ended keeping us up in the league. You know, important goals. He creates chances. You know, he was involved in both of the goals we scored yesterday. He's just such an important player, and I'm absolutely delighted to see him get called up in the England squad, because he does thoroughly deserve it. The only problem is, if Tom Cleverley comes, and I'm still sort of hoping that Tom Cleverley doesn't come to Aston Villa, but if he does come, it's going to mean that probably Ashley Westwood's going to be out of the team, and I felt that Delph and Westwood played very, very well together, and they're actually beginning to build a really good understanding, because it's getting into the start of the third season, I think, now that they've played together, so they're obviously beginning to know each other's game a lot better, and they're both improving all the time, and they're just doing very, very well for us. And if you'd have said at this point of the season we would have only conceded one goal and would be on 7 points, I would have gone, that's not very likely. Obviously, there are some really big tests coming up over the next couple of weeks. Got Liverpool next game and Chelsea after that, I think, and the fixture list certainly gets a lot tougher. But we've given ourselves a great start, and this is exactly what we needed. We had a summer where we were trying to be sold. everyone was going, oh, we're not going to get any players in. We've added some good players, and there's plenty of time left in the window, possibly some more players being added. We've actually strengthened in areas where I felt we needed to strengthen, and we've had a good start to the season. Yeah, we did get knocked out by Leyton Orient in the League Cup, but let's be brutally honest. What would I rather see? Would I rather see Villa stay in the Premier League or get to the 5th round of the League Cup? And there's only one answer to that question, and it's stay in the Premier League. So it's been a really, really good start to the season for Aston Villa, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to speak about how well Villa are playing at the moment, because it doesn't happen too often, so I hope you'll indulge me just a little bit there. But the second topic I wanted to talk about is Manchester United, and I wanted to talk about Louis van Gaal's Manchester United, because when he first came to the club after the World Cup, obviously, I just mentioned how well the Dutch did at the World Cup in reference to Ron Vlaar there, but there was no doubt the Netherlands had an absolutely unbelievable World Cup, and a large part of that was because of Louis van Gaal. He picked a system which got every ounce of talent and ability from his squad, and as a manager, that's all you can ask. You know, managers aren't miracle workers. They're given a set of players and they're told to get the best out of them, and there's no doubt at the World Cup Louis van Gaal did that, and he did that through a 3-5-2 system that really did play to his team's strengths, because that whole team was designed to get the ball to Schneider, Robben and Van Persie as much as possible, while still remaining solid in midfield and not overextending at the back too much, and I felt that did absolutely brilliantly. Van Gaal then came to Manchester United after the World Cup and had a really, really strong pre-season. He beat teams like Real Madrid, Valencia, Roma, very, very good teams. But as soon as he's actually entered into the competitive fixtures, the glaring truth is 3-5-2 does not suit Manchester United, and it hasn't suited Manchester United for years, and I don't think it will suit Manchester United, and here's why. For as long as I can remember, for as long as I've got out of bed and remembered to watch a game of football, Manchester United have played with wide players. And when I say wide players, I mean proper, traditional, chalk on your boots, wingers, upfield, with fullbacks who like to get forwards. That is how they like to play, and that is how they've been very, very successful. And in this current 3-5-2 system, we've got a situation where there are so many square pegs in round holes at Manchester United. It is absolutely unbelievable. Let's start at the back three. So the start of the season, it's been Jones, Smalling and Tyler Blackett at the back. None of those three defenders, or any of the replacement defenders who've come in, none of them look comfortable playing at three in the back. And obviously, if you're going to stick with the system and give them a bit of time, that's fine. Eventually, they'll come round. I think Phil Jones is a good player. I'm absolutely delighted that Van Gaal seems to be playing him at centre-back now, because for too long Phil Jones has been a utility player, and this has been one of the major detriments to his progression. It's because he is so versatile. He can fill in at right back and do a decent job, and he can fill in at holding midfielder and do a decent job, and that's one of the reasons I think that he has been held back, because people are reluctant to give him a run at that centre-back position because they just want to hold him in the squad and go, oh, we're a little bit light in midfield this week. Go on, Phil, you can sit in, you can do a job there. And I think that's actually held back his development somewhat. So I am pleased to see him play there. But if you look at Smalling, if you look at Blackett, they don't seem comfortable in that wider position. Because when you play three at the back, you've got that one central defender, the one guy in the middle, and then your two defenders either side of him. They have to do sort of a hybrid job between a centre-back and a full-back. So that means they've got to take the ball out of defence into midfield or wide to build the attack. And at first glance, and just listening to that, that doesn't seem like too big a deal. And I can understand why people would think that. But the positioning required, the mindset required, the technical ability required is completely different to your bog standard centre half. If you look at any major centre half, real top quality centre half in the world, the Chiellini's, the Companies, any of those guys, they are very good on the ball. But there's a difference between having a good first touch and being able to lay a ball off and being able to stride out of defence, get your head up and split your opponent open or get your wing back away. There's a big difference between doing that. And I don't feel like Manchester United's defenders can really do that. And obviously they've bought in Rojo, they're going to buy in Blind, these sort of guys to fill in this position. But let's say Rojo continues to have visa problems and can't get a game for a few more weeks, and let's say Blind tears his hamstring in the first training session that he has at Manchester United, what are they going to do then? Are they going to still stick with this 3-5-2 with the square pegs and round holes and beat themselves over the head with it? For me, I don't like that at all. Moving into now the wing-back position, at the moment Manchester United are playing Ashley Young and Antonio Valencia in this wing-back role, and I have never seen a player more uncomfortable with the role he has been given than Ashley Young at wing-back. Ashley Young is the biggest winger I have ever seen. He is a winger or you put him on the bench. There is no way I would trust him with any sort of wing-back defensive responsibilities. And there was a really interesting discussion between Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher on a Monday Night Football, and it was talking about the difference between a full-back and a wing-back. And I think Jamie Carragher was saying that there isn't really too much of a difference. And I completely disagree. I agree with Gary Neville. And Gary Neville was saying there is a big difference between full-back and a wing-back, and that, the difference is, yes, I agree, modern full-backs, more than any other time in football, are expected to contribute going forward. If you look at all of the best fullbacks in the world, if you came up with a list of the 10 best fullbacks in the world, most of them would be attack-minded fullbacks. It's just the way it is in football now, and it's a very, very good invention to get your fullback up the pitch because it provides you with extra width. It enables you to overload in certain attacking situations where all of a sudden you've got a central midfielder who's drifted wide and a winger and a fullback on just one guy, and it doesn't matter how talented that one guy is, he can't defend against 3 people, and that's how you create an overload. You get a cross into the box, you create space, you pull centre-backs out of position. All those things are good. But with a wing-back, you're expected to do that and get back constantly. So you're expected to be both a winger and a full-back at the same time. If you look at the best full-back in the league, which I genuinely still think is Leighton Baines is well known for being an absolutely fantastic attacking full-back. He has a brilliant cross, he's really good on the ball, he takes a mean set piece, great things. Does he go forward every single time to an attack? No. Wing-backs have to, because if a wing-back doesn't, all of a sudden your team has no width, especially when you're playing a sort of a 3-5-2 formation with these 2 wing-backs. If they don't go forward every single time, your team has no width, it has no pace, it has no opportunity to stretch your opponent. And this is what's happening with Manchester United. You're having these players, you're having Valencia and Young, who are out-and-out wingers, and for all of the time they want to be upfield, but because they're playing wing back, they've got it in their head that, hang on, I can't do this because I have to have my defensive responsibility, and they don't have the mindset and they don't have the stamina to be both. And this is why I think wing back is completely different to full back and winger. It's in between the two of them. It requires a different style of player, and I don't think Manchester United have that. So you've got 3 at the back where pretty much everybody who plays there isn't comfortable playing 3 at the back. And then you've got wing backs at the moment where they aren't comfortable playing wing backs. And when Luke Shaw comes back, I think he will definitely help in that regard on the left. But again, I still think he's a full back as opposed to a wing back, and there is a definite defined difference there. Moving into midfield now. This is just even more square pegs in round holes. Manchester United have gone out and spent a British record transfer fee on Angel Di Maria. And Angel Di Maria, let's make no mistake about this, is a fantastic player. He's an absolutely fantastic player. I'm stunned Real Madrid have let him go, to be honest. He had a little bit of a shaky period. He has his bad games, but there's no denying he's a really, really talented footballer. But again, this guy is a winger. This guy is a wide player. First and foremost, he is a wide player. But against Burnley, for his Manchester United debut, because Van Gaal has got it into his head that 3-5-2 is the way he's going to go, it left Manchester United playing this really strange hybrid midfield system. So they had Fletcher as the one holding player, and then they had sort of 2 attacking midfielders in Mata and Di Maria, and then 2 strikers in Van Persie and Rooney. And because, like I was saying earlier, they have their wing backs, in inverted commas, Young and Valencia, who aren't comfortable in doing that role, for so much of the game, United's attack was completely and utterly slow and ponderous and useless. And that was because the ball will get rolled out to one of the back three who isn't comfortable playing there, and they don't enjoy bringing the ball out of defence with enough verve and vigour to make it worthwhile. And then they pass it to the wing back who aren't comfortable playing there, so are out of position or aren't far enough up the field to provide the width required. And then they'd lay it off into Darren Fletcher, who's got nobody around him because he's the only holding midfielder, and the three centre backs are out of position and the wing backs don't know what they're doing. And then all of a sudden he's like, hang on, there's no easy ball for me, I'm going to have to pass it back and go back to square one. And then you've got Di Maria playing out of position, so he isn't able to stretch defenders as much as he could. And when he got on the ball in some space and he ran at defenders, he looked really good. And he terrified the Burnley players. But it happened about twice in the entire game. And the reason why it happened was because Mata and Di Maria got in each other's way. And Rooney naturally likes to drop deep. Whenever you play him up front, he always likes to drop into position, pick the ball up, spray the play, then move forward. And all three of them, you could basically throw a tea towel over them in some parts of the game. That's how close they were together. So it was really congested in that part. And Burnley, obviously playing against one of the best teams in the league, kept it really tight and blocked up the space. And because Manchester United had no width, because their wing backs were out of position, they couldn't get the midfield cleared. They couldn't get Mata in any space, and it slowed it all down again. And you're beginning to see what I'm saying. So much of this United team is just completely alien to this system, and they don't like it. It's so clear they don't like it. And for me, I think Van Gaal has to change. Van Gaal has to change his system, because, well, for all the reasons I've just said. I think what's happened is he picked that system for the Dutch because it was the best system for that particular team. He has never really played 3-5-2 before. If you go back to Ajax, go back to Bayern Munich, all of these teams, he's played 4-2-3-1 or some variation of that. He has very rarely, if ever, played 3-5-2. But because all of a sudden everybody said, oh, he's a tactical genius, this 3-5-2, he's made it work. He's made this Dutch side play far beyond their means. What a great manager he is. All of a sudden I think that's changed. And it actually was reflected in the quote he had after the first game of the season when he said, in pre-season I was king and now I'm not. The reason why is because in pre-season, yeah, it's great to play well against all these teams, but it's absolutely meaningless. Once you're in a properly competitive environment and players are sticking their foot in, because let's not forget, in a pre-season game, there's 2 weeks to go to the start of the season, there's a 50-50 ball. Are you going to go in there 110% like you would in a competitive game? Absolutely not, because you might stick your foot in and tear your ACL or have your leg broken, all of a sudden that's your season over. Of course you're not going to do that. So when the stakes are raised, all of a sudden it's become very apparent just how ill-fitting this formation is for Manchester United. But because of all the hype over the World Cup and the pre-season about how Van Gaal has come in and said 3-5-2 is the way forward for this team, he's got too rigid. The major strengths of a manager is picking a formation to suit the players available. And to get a group of players who are comfortable with 3-5-2, I think Van Gaal would have to buy another 7 players on the last day. And it's currently 9 minutes to 4 on transfer deadline day, and I think he's going to struggle to sign 7 players from this point. The thing is as well, who's another player Manchester United have been linked with today? Radamel Falcao, a striker. Yes, absolutely unbelievable striker, world-class striker, one of the best strikers in the world. Is he going to revolutionise the system? Is he really going to help fix his 3-5-2? Absolutely not. Because what is he? He's a big, strong guy who likes ball played into him, who's good in the air, who can muscle defenders, who likes to make runs in behind. And when is that particularly useful? When you've got wide players to stretch the play, and you've got a central attacking midfielder who isn't completely congested with teammates in opposition around him. It's just so well, it's not frustrating because I'm not a United fan, but when I sit there and look at that team and look at that system, I think just from an outside, completely neutral observer, it is quite apparent that it just isn't going to work. And for me, I would be really impressed if Van Gaal put his hands up and said, you know what? This isn't going to work. Let's try something different. I think sticking with this is really going to hinder Manchester United. It really is. And let's not forget, Louis Van Gaal already has spent an astonishing an absolutely astonishing amount of money in this window. And the way Manchester United have played in the first 3 games of the season, they've been absolutely mullered by Milton Keynes Dons. They've been basically outplayed by Burnley. Burnley were comfortably the better team on, was it Saturday morning? Yeah, it was Saturday morning. Comfortably the better team. So you've got this team where you've invested silly money into it, and you're getting outplayed by a team that in its entire 100 and something year history spent 45 million. You have bought one player for 60 million, and you are playing a club who in their entire 120 year history, however long it is, has only spent 45 million, and that club is still making you look average. That is when you have to sit back and think, do you know what, perhaps this isn't working. It's got to be changed. It really has to be changed. Manchester United are too big a club, and they have too many good players to be this average. And I know it's all very, very funny if you're not a Manchester United fan, and it's all a big joke and ha ha ha, how badly are they doing? But it's not good enough. It's not good enough. With the players they have and the money they've spent and the skill and talent they have in the squad, there's got to be a better way to make use of it. And in my opinion anyway, 3-5-2 is just so clearly not that way. So guys, thank you so much for listening to the video. Really hope you've enjoyed it. What's your opinion? Do you think 3-5-2 is the way forward? Or like me, do you think Van Gaal needs to change it? What sort of player are Manchester United lacking to make this system work? I'll be very, very interested in hearing your opinion on all of those. But once again, thank you so much for listening. And until next time, have a great day.